Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So my name's Simon Sprints. I work on something called the Global Entrepreneurs Programme in the UK government's Department of International Trade. So I want to give you an overview of the UK e-commerce market and some of the support and services available. So this is the stuff that I'm going to cover. Hopefully we'll have time at the end for questions, but I'll leave my email address and the addresses of the team so you can get in touch with all of us because we're here to help. I'll cover what DIT is, what the Department of International Trade is, what the Global Entrepreneurs Programme is, cover the UK e-commerce market. Most importantly, how you enter the market, the best routes that we found for the companies that I've worked with. I'll cover raising investment in the UK. It's always a big ask of us. I'll go through taxes and visas. I'm not an accountant or a visa specialist by any of the imagination, but I do know the routes that you can go through to get the best advice. And then I'll cover the next steps for you. So the Department for International Trade, the majority, pretty much all our services are free. We're a UK government department, so everything that you access with us is paid for. And there are lots and lots and lots of teams within the Department for International Trade. Mainly tasked with doing two things: helping foreign companies come to the UK and helping UK companies export overseas. And the second point is really important because we are in about 100 countries or over 100 countries. So if you want to go from the UK and go into the US, there are teams in San Francisco, there are teams in Los Angeles, in New York. If you want to go into China, there's teams there, in Australia, you name it, we have a presence there. There is an awful lot of support available once you become a UK company to go overseas. As I say, there's lots of teams within the Department of International Trade. I work in one particular team called the Global Entrepreneurs Programme. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But generically, here's the kind of support that you can get. So at the top there, there's the Global Entrepreneurs Programme, GEP. That's where I sit. There's dedicated exporting teams, which help you go overseas once you're a UK company. There's expansion investment services teams, so they can help you understand which country is right for you to expand into, and also which city in the UK is the best for you. So it's not all about London. London's where the majority of business takes place, and I'll go through that. But also there are lots of other cities, especially around e-commerce and logistics, that might be right for you. And then the one at the bottom there, the UK Business Environment Advisory Team, they're really important for you for your next steps. They're the ones that can help you understand the best route for visas, tax, and most importantly, setting up your business and your banking. So, okay, let's talk about the Global Entrepreneurs Programme. So we are a team of founders, of business people in the UK, and we are expressly interested in working founders of disruptive technology companies from any industry in any country, helping them set up their HQ in the UK and growing from there internationally. Our services are free, but we are selective. So we're one of the only teams within the Department of International Trade who select who we bring onto our program. Once you're in the UK, then you get support from people like me. They call us deal makers, who provide networking and access to mentoring and access to all our networks. So to date, we've helped over 850 businesses, created over 5,000 high quality jobs. But most importantly for you, raised over $1 billion in VC and angel investment for the companies that we've helped in the UK. Once a company comes on the program, we don't really forget about them. Once they're in the UK, we carry on supporting them and they become part of an alumni or a group that we support. So They call us deal makers. There's 15 of us at the moment, and we cover lots and lots of different industries. So I cover e-commerce, retail technology, education technology, and we have people doing agri-tech. We have people doing renewables, people doing games. You name it. If there's any sector, we are working in it. Our focus, as I said, is really in disruptive technology companies. And what the Dealmaker does is we select companies and bring them onto the program. And this is either done through our personal network or the DIT teams overseas. So similar to the team in Turkey, there were teams in every country. And then once they land in the company, we help them grow. We introduce them to our network for sales. We give them strategic support for how to grow in the UK. Everyone in the team runs businesses. So we've done it before. We do sales. We do recruitment. We all have raised investment for our companies. So we help you do that the right way. We've already made the mistake, so we make sure that you don't. So just to contextualize it, I thought I'd give you a couple of case studies of companies that I've worked with. So Virtual Visions, so they're in-store interactive screen and software company from the United States. Their requirements from us was mainly access to market. They just wanted to get into the right networks and start doing some sales. They had some great case studies of stuff that they'd done in the US and in China. So what I did was I introduced them to a series of network organizations and sales partners, and they've started to do pretty well in the UK. And I'm going to specify one of those sales partners that I introduced them to later on. And then on the other side, on the education technology side, there's this interesting company that actually came through from Sri Lanka that's a platform for international students to find their university. Now, their assistance, they were reasonably early stage, was in developing their platform, their UK focused platform. They were already revenue generating, and to raise finance. So we helped them find a partner to develop their platform. And then I helped them secure investment of around £2 million, which they have so far. They'll most likely raise more soon, in what we call EIS round of investment. So EIS stands for the Enterprise Investment Scheme. And when I talk about raising investment in the UK, I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So those are just two case studies that help you understand how we work with companies and how we help them grow. Okay, so let's move on to the big piece. So the e-commerce market and its metrics. So I thought I'll talk more about the market as the market in the whole of Europe. Largely I work with companies from outside Europe, and this is how they see their expansion. They're looking at the UK being a footprint for European domination and European market. So within Europe, it's dominated by 3 countries really in terms of e-commerce. So obviously UK is the highest, and just behind it is Germany, and then behind again is France. And I'll just show you how those statistics break down, because it's really quite interesting once we look at the value of each country and the number of users. So in the UK, we have the highest revenue, but Germany has the highest number of users. So it's kind of like the UK and Germany is starting to become neck and neck. But what you do have in the UK is a higher spend per user than any other country in Europe. And obviously France is further down below that. And then you have the 3 other countries who represent the market, Spain, Italy, and Netherlands falling down below them. So really the predominance of the market in terms of its highest growth is definitely within the UK and Germany. I think to reinforce that, we also look at how the size of the industry. So one of the interesting form of statistics and information for us is to look at retail stats of workforce, and also to look at e-commerce workforce on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn statistics are really interesting. We always look for a highlight city as well as the country. So you know, the workforce in UK really dominates, and London is the dominant force within the UK. Paris is huge in terms of its e-commerce workforce, and the statistics on the workforce in France is actually higher than Germany. But it just reinforces that the top three are stand out. The top three, you know, if you're going to come into any country to hire workforce, you know, UK is pretty much the place to be. I think London is huge, but there is a huge amount of cities around the UK that are also big for e-commerce. Manchester, Birmingham, being the two other dominant forces where they surround their e-commerce around the logistics available to spread across the whole country. Okay, so these are some of the latest statistics that I have on hand for the UK market. And what you can see is actually a reasonably conservative annual growth rate at the end of the column. And you can see the growth rate from where we are now in 2020 right up to 2024. And these are some of the statistics that we have available for you to help you reinforce the decisions that you can make. And they are broken down into the more traditional areas for e-commerce. So, you know, fashion as normal heading the way, and then electronics and media, food and personal care, furniture, and then anything within toys and hobbies and DIY. And again, the users per million and the annual growth rate, which we feel is quite conservative. Lots and lots of e-commerce reports out there with different rates. So within the UK, so who's spending the most money? So the spending power is really greatest within the 35 to 55-year-old bracket. You know, you only have to look at the 45 to 54-year-olds in that graph and see that they are definitely, and the 35 to 44-year-olds as well, definitely in the highest proliferance of spenders. But what's most interesting to me is 65 plus. So we have a huge spread of e-commerce users across web and across mobile. So where do we sit in the kind of global statistics? So obviously, and I always find this quite interesting. Obviously, China and the US is ahead of us, but they're kind of very large countries. The comparison to countries that are pretty much the size of continents is always quite interesting to me. But UK and Japan kind of almost swap places annually and also across different reports. So UK comes out third, fourth is Japan, and then Germany just behind. I say what's most interesting to me is within Europe, you have two of the top 5 biggest e-commerce markets. So for any company in Turkey, any technology company looking to service this industry, it's really, your move has really got to be the UK and Germany. Obviously, I'm here to sell the UK, and I'm going to reinforce why the UK should be part of your plan. But it really, for us as the Global Entrepreneurs Program, we want you in all of those markets. It's just which one first. Okay, so let's look at the global e-commerce revenue and its expected growth. So the annual growth rate on the other chart for the UK was 5.6. The annual growth rate globally is actually 9%. And this is where you start getting into reading so many reports that you start to understand that the annual growth rate is actually somewhere in between those two figures. So lots of reports looking at annual growth rate of around 4 or 5%, and lots of reports saying that it's around 9% globally. I think the thing to remember is that globally, some countries are lagging behind, so their growth rates will be higher. The thing to reinforce this is also this sector is one that's considered one of the most resilient and highest growth, one that investors we find are very, very interested in. It's also becoming very, very competitive. So just to reinforce that, I thought I'd download some stats about the e-commerce market during the pandemic. And what I found really interesting, it's actually more of perhaps a view on different countries and their lockdown. So the UK in blue was locked down, but logistics and e-commerce companies were still very much operating. So the growth is really steady. And with a much more of a spike towards the end of March. In Italy and Spain, where lockdown was very severe, and logistics and lots of those companies weren't actually operating at all, in March it peaked down, and then, well, Italy's gone up to 101% in March, which is quite phenomenal. Again, you know, for investors, this is a resilient sector. People that weren't spending as much online are spending more online, and obviously, most importantly, becoming more and more interested in spending online. And obviously, interesting for us is those two dominant countries, UK and Germany, just have very, very steady growth even throughout the pandemic, and getting even higher now. Okay, so I just want to choose some usage stats. So, and I'll highlight the ones that I think are most important. So huge amount of the UK population use the internet. You know, so 91% is pretty damn high. But the thing for me is the average revenue per UK user is at around £1,200, which is one of the highest in the world. And the UK is the third largest mobile commerce market worldwide. The reason for all these stats being so good is the UK consumer is an early adopter consumer of technology, of payment methods. You know, there is no problem, even as I pointed out to you before, in a 65-plus-year-old paying for stuff online, expecting a delivery, understanding how to track that delivery, using sites that they'd never used before because they understand that the payment mechanism is trustworthy. So there's a huge amount of trust in e-commerce within the UK. That's been very traditional, and the mobile commerce market has been large for quite a while in the UK. So just to reinforce that, this is the size of the mobile e-commerce market in the UK. And these stats are from 2018. They were the closest that I could find, the most up to date I could find. But you can see smartphone device e-commerce is at 40% even in 2018. So incredibly high. People are very, very used to using not only apps but responsive websites. And the growth on that, I think, also lends to the growth of different e-commerce website platforms. So these are the top 10 in the UK. As you expect, you know, lots of companies creating customized platforms that might use Shopify or Magento. And you know, down in number 8, I think Drupal, there's still a lot of open source stuff that's created in the UK. But if you're a technology supplier looking to service companies using these sort of platforms, these are your top 10. You know, this is where you're going to get your market. Okay, and then I spoke briefly about payment systems and how people are used to them. So these are the top 10 payment systems on UK merchant sites. Obviously, a lot of merchants will have multiple payment systems, so they will have PayPal and they will have Stripe as well. But these are the top 10. And again, if you're a payment provider or servicing payment providers and their sites with data, then these are the top ones that you would need to integrate to. Similarly, on logistics, so unsurprising in the UK, Royal Mail would be number one. It's the brand, it's the UK logistics service, it's the most trusted. And then the rest of them are pretty much what you would expect from international players that are all in the UK market. So if you're servicing this layer and you already have relationships with some of them, those relationships and integrations would be easy to do within the UK. Okay, so I've painted a picture of the market and how it's shaped. Obviously, this is all an overview, and we have more detailed statistics should you require. But the rest is about market entry. You know, I can talk to you about the statistics all day long, but really what we do on the Global Entrepreneurs Program is we don't just promote, we help companies enter the market. And that's really what we're about. So in terms of market entry, and I'll just do a brief on this, so it's an overview again. So you have kind of two routes. So there's large retail bodies that will also service e-commerce and e-retailers. These are very large bodies that will put on events. They're basically servicing policy for the government as well. And, you know, they're on the main free to access membership bodies. So definitely connections to them are really easy. On the other side, especially for technology companies, you have perhaps more paid membership associations. So Validify is a reasonably new network that is involved in brokerage between innovative tech companies and e-retailers, and also the physical high street. So connected retail is a big play for them. IMRG, the Internet Media Retail Group, they span out of one of the big retail consortia, retail bodies.